Thank you for joining me today for a walk in the garden. It's the end of March, and we did a program a year ago, the exact same date, and things are certainly different this year. Last year we were doing heavy into yard cleanup, and the bulbs were starting to come up. This year we still have quite a lot of snow left, although there are some open patches, and we can now get out through it a little bit and assess some of the things that are happening in the garden. One of the things that's happened to me, and probably to most of you, is shrub damage. The deer have been coming through here in droves. They're hungry. They haven't been able to get as much food as usual. As a result, they're eating all of our shrubs. This bush shows significant deer damage. Because of the heavy snow, I wasn't out here to get my deer spray on. I used one of there are a number of deer spray products. Most of them contain eggs, and mint are two of the things that are common in them. They're safe, and they do kind of keep the deer from eating valuable shrubs. But now we can get out and start spraying them because they're still around and they're still hungry. And I would like them to eat things that are not in my yard. So we'll spray the shrubs down. For some areas it's too late. I will wait and see if these get new leaves. If they don't, we'll probably do some pruning to restore the shrub. A lot of shrubs are also broken, and some of those will need pruning, but it's still a little early to tell what needs to be cut off. Obviously, anything that's dead or completely broken off needs to be removed. It's still too early to do a lot of raking and cleaning up. These are the baskets of oak leaves that I put over chrysanthemums and lavenders, and I'm going to leave them on yet a while longer. It's still getting below freezing and down into the 20s at night. As soon as we're getting consistent days that are 50 degrees and bulbs are starting to come up, I will remove these baskets and trim off the dead foliage from the chrysanthemums and any on the lavender that needs to be cut. I prefer to cut lavender in the spring rather than the fall. It seems to hold on to its live growth a little better if you don't cut it right before harvest. Bulbs should start coming up soon. I can see a hint of things here and there. If you have coral bells, and there are some here, you need to watch that they haven't heaved out of the ground. They are prone to do that, and if they are, you need to just, when the ground has thawed, just kind of push them down so that they're making good contact with the soil. Once the snow starts to melt, you'll be able to cut off some of the old stems on the grasses. This one's not quite out of the snow, but I can start trimming it back and then clean up as we go. This is a liriope, and it will put out new foliage in the center, but you can take off the old branches. If you have grasses up near the house, they're looking pretty seedy by now, so you'll want to get them clipped off and cleaned up. As the snow melts, you can start doing some raking and picking up of branches. I'm collecting a brush pile, which will be burned. Norfolk does allow open burning until the 1st of May of brush. There are specific rules that they have, and you need to get a permit from the fire department. The permit is free, but you need to get a permit, and then before you do any burning, you need to call the fire department and register with them and make sure that it is not a dangerous wind situation where they do not allow burning that day, and they will take down your name as being one of the places that has a brush fire that day. Burning ends May 1st. I'm hopeful that by then all of this snow will be gone and we can pick up the many branches that fell over the winter and do a very good cleanup. Again, you do need to get that permit, and they're available now. However, my brush pile's still under the snow, so I won't be burning for a while, maybe another month. Now let's move towards the back a little bit. Between the snow and the deer, there's going to be a lot of shrub damage this year. And now is a good time to do some pruning once the snow melts. You need to give shrubs that have been collapsed by the snow a little time. A lot of times they will regain their shape after the snow melts, if you just give them a little time. Other things are broken, need to be taken off. And this is an oak leaf hydrangea that has got a split in it, probably from heavy snow on it coming off the roof. One of the things I'm going to try with this, I could just prune it all the way back, and that would be one way to do it, and take the whole large branch down. But I rather like the height of this shrub the way it is. So I'm going to try something that's worked for me in the past, and that's electrical tape. And I'm just going to put this split back together and wrap it well with electrical tape. It seems like a strange thing, but it does sometimes work. We'll know soon when it starts to leaf out if it's been effective. And I've had shrubs that actually mended themselves with the tape on them. The tape can just stay there and it'll become part of the branch. And we're just going to let that stay and see what happens. Obviously, if this fails to leaf out, I will have to cut it off and probably cut all the way back down into the shrub itself. It will take a while for the shrub to regain its shape when it loses two branches this large. And I may have to take off other branches of the same shrub to give it some symmetry as we go along. Now let's move back to the patio where we have a few signs of spring. In front of the windows and by my brick patio, I always have the earliest flowers, and this is no exception. This is what's called a snow crocus, and my regular crocuses are also in bud back here. This is the place I will have the earliest bulbs. Also, the deer don't come up here too much because Buddy kind of keeps them out of the area around the house, which is fortunate because deer love crocuses and tulips. If you have crocuses and tulips planted, make sure when they first come up that you do spray them with deer spray, because otherwise you'll come out before the blooms have even started to show and you'll find just mowed off pieces of your bulbs. Deer love them. I think they're the dessert that deer crave because they really do like them. I also have some snapdragons back here that seem to come back every year, and I can start taking the dead pieces off of those, dead and broken pieces. And they do tend to return. I have had them for a couple years and I'm anxious to see what they do. I have had the bulbs covered with pine boughs over the winter, and I've pulled those back as they've come up. I have left them here because if we get a really cold spell, and this year one never knows what we're going to get, in that event, I can put these branches back over the bulbs and give them a little protection from the cold air. Most of the time they'll be just fine because the bricks in the patio heat up. You may have noticed, lots of birdseed. I've been feeding the birds all winter, and these are all hulls from the birdseed. That'll all need to be cleaned up, and as the snow melts, I'll just get the shop vac out and we'll vacuum all the birdseed up off the patio. This is going to take a while. At one point, the patio table was completely covered with snow. So we've had a great deal of snow on top of this patio, but I have been able to continue feeding the birds all winter, and they're still enjoying it because a lot of the places where they would normally find food is still snow covered. They are starting to think about nesting. We're starting to hear birds with their spring calls. And they do need a source of protein, and you can provide that by continuing to feed them if you don't feed them all year around. Just continue to feed them until a lot of things are available for them and the snow is gone, and they can reach some of the seedlings that are on the ground. Now let's go inside and do a little inside gardening and some cooking. Just because we are still waiting on the weather to clear outdoors doesn't mean we can't do a lot of gardening inside. And now's the time to start your plants that you want to set out. I love to plant seedlings, and we've already planted some on our last episode. We planted celery and we planted onions, and they have both come up and are growing under the grow lights. I use my seedling boxes. I've had good luck with these. They're reusable. This is a fabric that holds the water, and it's on a water-filled reservoir. And then you put the little seedling cubes on top and fill them with potting soil. I've already done that part. That's the messy part. And then you're ready to put your seeds in each of these. And what I'm going to plant today will be broccoli, tomatoes, and peppers. And I'll start with the broccoli, and I plant different kinds. That's the nice thing about growing it yourself. You're not stuck with whatever they happen to have when you go to buy plants. And this broccoli is Fiesta broccoli, and I try to pick different seedlings, varieties, that are designed for our climate. And I'm going to plant 6 Fiesta. And then I have also one called Limba. And I'll plant 6 of those. And I'll put 2 or 3 seeds in each one. And then at some point, I will be removing all but one from each of the cubes. And I'm just going to cover them lightly. You want to put about as much soil over the top of the seed as the size of the seed. So that's very little. And just smooth it down. Into the growing medium. These will take about a week, and then you'll start to see seedlings. And what I want to do is mark them. Did I put a mark on this one that says broccoli? I want to make sure I know which one went where. So on this, because I only have 2 items in it, I'll put Fiesta front and Limba back. On a piece of tape, and then fasten it on the front of the container, which I hope says broccoli. That way I'll know which one is coming up. And if one does not do well, I'll know which one that is, and I won't plant it again next year. The next thing I have are peppers. And for the peppers, I have 3 different varieties. And I really don't want too many hot peppers, so I'm only going to plant a few of those. Actually, I have 4 varieties, and I have 12 spaces. These were given to me by a friend, and they're a hot New Mexican pepper, and I'd like a few, but I don't want too many. And she also said that the seeds were not new, so maybe plant a few more in each cube. So we'll put those in the back. And these are called Hatch peppers, and they're supposed to be a special hot pepper that likes heat. So we're going to be growing these indoors for quite a while. And again, I'll just cover the seed and press it down. And at this point, since I have 4 of them, I'm going to write down on the back part, Hatch. And I've made a little grid so that I'll know what's there. I've put peppers on the top, which will be the front of the actual container. The next one is called Fat and Sassy, and that one is designed especially for our climate. Peppers need a lot of heat, and we don't often have too long a season here to grow peppers. So if you can pick a variety that does well here, it's a bonus. And we're going to plant 3 of those. Those are, and again, I'll mark it on my list. The next one is Jimmy Nardillo, and this one is an Italian frying pepper that we like quite well. So make sure these other ones are covered. And we'll plant 3 of those. And again, I'll just put a little bit of soil over the tops just to cover them up. Make sure they're in good contact with the soil. And write it in. I just abbreviate it. That leaves me 4 more, and those will be piecework, another variety that's particularly good for the Northeast. And I'll plant 4 of those so that they can. I don't have tremendous luck with peppers, I must admit. I try every year. I don't get as big a crop as I would get in a warmer climate, but we do get a few, so it's always worth trying to grow a few. Some years are very good. It depends on the weather as much as anything. And we'll see how they do. The seedlings will do well. Okay, and then I have my little cheat sheet so I know what I've planted as far as peppers go. Now I have more in the way of tomatoes to plant, and I've got 24 here because I've got a lot of varieties of different kinds of tomatoes. Really like tomatoes, and this is a grape tomato, and I'm only going to plant 2 of those. Again, I'll put several seedlings in each one, and again, I'm going to press them down and just barely cover them with soil. And we'll put the name on there and proceed. And this is a Jasper cherry tomato, which is a new one for me. And I'd like to have a couple of those too. Some seeds come in little inner packages to keep them fresh. This one actually has very small seeds for a tomato, and that's good because then you don't have a lot of seeds when you go to eat them. However, it makes them a little harder to plant when the seeds are small. And we'll put several in. Tomato seeds will last several years. And we'll write down Jasper. This is one that's particularly good for drying. It's Principe Borghese. It's an Italian pepper. They're small, but they're particularly good for drying. And we'll do 3 of those. And again, and just initials are enough. This is another one that I haven't planted for a number of years, and it's called a Fargo yellow pear tomato. Yellow pear tomatoes are a nice change from red ones. And I'm going to do 3 of those. And again, marking them. Amish paste tomatoes. Paste tomatoes are the elongated oval tomatoes. And we're going to do 3 of those. And then I have another paste tomato, Vilms, which did well for me last year. And we're going to do 3 of those. Again, 1 or 2 seeds. Most of these will probably germinate, and we'll have to cut some of them back. But it's nice to have them there. And then I have Rutgers, which is a very old-fashioned tomato. It's not quite an heirloom, but it is fairly old. And it makes a good main season large tomato crop. Incidentally, I don't put all of these plants in the garden. I will be sharing some of those with my relatives and friends. Which leaves us with Jet Star. Another main season tomato. And this one is kind of a mid to late season. And I'll put 1 or 2 of each in my garden. And select the best plants out of the bunch of seedlings. Okay, we've got seedlings done and the lists made. We know what's going to be planted where. And the next step is to cover them. We'll fill the bottom part completely with water once we get it up under the lights, and put the covers on. And the covers will stay on until we see little green plants starting to come up. And I'll be putting these up under the lights. And then we move the lights to keep them just over the top of the plants. Now the next thing I'm going to do is a little craft project. Since I'm stuck inside with all the snow out there and anxious to get outside, but I can't quite make it yet, I'm going to do some craft projects. And I've been saving wine corks for a while. And I'm making a planter with them. I used a hanging planter that I had used in the garden. I washed it well. And I'm using a product called GE Silicone 2. And wine corks. You can use this product also on bowling balls if you want to embellish a bowling ball, which is another thing that I might do a little later on. But basically, you just squeeze on the GE silicone. And then I've used a plastic knife to spread it around. You want to get a fairly good. You work in sections. I took the hanging part down. I'll return that to it once it's dried and cured. It needs to sit a while. And then just basically stud it with the wine corks. And if I don't have enough, I guess I'll have to drink more wine. But I think we probably will have enough. I just wanted you to get the idea of how to do something like this. You could do a flower pot. I've seen a lot of the bowling balls done with fancy jewels and a lot of bling. I'm not really into that sort of thing in the garden, so I think if I do a bowling ball, which I have one, I will probably end up doing it with small stones to make just a round circle with small stones in it. Do a few more of these. It's an easy project. You do have to let it sit and cure before you turn it up and use it. This is, the product is a window, door, attic, and basement rain-ready, sun and freeze-proof caulking material. And this is the silicone 2, and it's clear. And that's the best one for craft projects. And we'll just keep adding these as we go. And then I'll probably use around the top a half wine cork. I'll cut one in half. They cut pretty easily. And use a half around the top. But I'll leave it like this until it gets good and cured. So that is a hanging basket with wine corks. There's a lot of wine cork projects online. And again, if you save them, you'll find some interesting things to do with them if you're so inclined. Now it's time to go into the kitchen and do some cooking. Today I'm going to be making a few items for an Easter brunch. And we're going to start out by making a quiche. I've already made the crust, and you could use a prepared pie crust from the grocery store, or you can make your own. And I also have asparagus, and if you buy asparagus, asparagus is in season now, and a good way to store it is in a glass of water. Just put it in the refrigerator and then when you're ready to cook it, clean it, wash it, and then stem it. And the best way is just to hold it and snap off the end. And that's the tough part that you've taken off. And where it snaps off is where that part is. Rather than cutting it with a knife, if you do it with your fingers, you won't get any of the toughness. We're going to start out with adding some things to the quiche. And one of the things will be the asparagus, which I'm going to chop up. I've already par-cooked this in the microwave. And I'm going to just chop some of it up into pieces. I'm going to save a few stalks to go on top. You could also use spinach or broccoli in this quiche if asparagus is not one of your favorites. But we're using asparagus today because it is in season. I don't grow asparagus. I once grew some asparagus, but it is a crop that takes a very long time to mature. And I'm going to save about 6 or 7 stalks out and chop the rest and put them into the crust. I'll add some cubed ham, and this is just a good quality deli ham. We'll spread that around. And also some onions. And these have been sauteed in a little butter. Just until they're a little soft. Add those. And then we'll make a custard to go into the quiche. And I'll use 3 eggs. I'm going to beat those a bit. And add a cup of cream. This is the foundation for the quiche. You can make any type of quiche with it, with these ingredients. And this is the basic custard that you could use. Then you will season it however you wish. And for this one, I'm going to add a little salt. Just a little bit, because the ham already has some salt in it. And a little white pepper, just a sprinkle. The white pepper doesn't give the brown flecks, so I like to use that in something like this. And then a little thyme. And this is some of the thyme that I grew last year. And we'll add about a half a teaspoon, just to give it a little herb flavor. At this point, I will pour it over the other ingredients in the shell and spread it out to cover. This will puff up once it's in the oven. And then I'm going to lay some pieces of asparagus across the top. And I think I'd like to cut those a little bit. Use the scissors. Put them in the shape of a wheel. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with shredded cheese. And this is a combination of Swiss and Asiago. Next it goes in the oven. And it's going to be going in the oven at 425 for 10 minutes. And I'll set the timer for that, because then we turn down the oven to 350 for another 30 minutes. The next item I'm going to prepare is a coffee bread. And you can start with a hot roll mix dough, or you can prepare your own. I prepared my own. And a hot roll mix will make 2 of these Easter Dove coffee breads. And I want to roll this out. I'll probably need a little more flour. But we want to roll this into a rectangle. And this would be very much the same as if you were making cinnamon rolls. I need to dust my roller a little bit. And I want to roll this very thinly, out to about 9 to 12 inches. Now we need to make a filling for this bread. I think we can roll it a little bit thinner. Try to keep it in a rectangular shape. And for the filling of this one, I'm going to use a little different filling. You could use cinnamon and sugar. I'm using vanilla wafers. This is going to be an almond type coffee cake. And I've used just plain old vanilla wafers, which I've put through the food processor to make crumbs. And you'd use a whole package of those. And let's see, we need there it is. I'm going to have some melted butter. An almond extract, half a teaspoon. And I'll work that together, and I want to add some water, maybe a tablespoon or so of water. It will still be crumbly. I'm going to work it to get all the butter mixed in. Gets a little messy to make, but it does turn out nicely. I'm going to put this on the top of the dough, and I'll spread it out. And press it down. Nobody ever guesses that these are vanilla wafers. They think it's some sort of fancy almond filling. And it really is good, but it's pretty easy and a little variation from regular cinnamon rolls. The shaping of this for the Easter bread, again, you could just make rolls with it, but this is an Easter bread I like to make. I'm going to roll this up. Kind of lifting and rolling as I go. I'm going to seal the ends. Seal that one into kind of a point. And this end I'm going to turn under and seal flat. And just fasten it together. Rid of a few crumbs here. Now I want to cut this, cut about a quarter of it off, and this will be the wing of the bird. And this end I will fasten together, and this will be the bird's wing. And this one I will make flat. Now to shape a bird, I'm going to just put it on the baking sheet with the seam side down. And the point will be the head. And then we'll put the wing right in this area. And I have some beaten egg, which I will brush on it. Help the wing stick a little bit. And we're also going to just brush the whole bird with it. I like that area better. Nope. So this would be the tail of the bird, the head of the bird, and a wing. And then I will embellish it with sliced almonds on the wing and the tail. And we'll just arrange those as best we can. And again, we'll do the wing. You can do as much or as little as you wish on these. It is an almond flavored coffee cake and good for spring and Easter. And it makes a nice centerpiece on an Easter table. Now, remembering that this is a yeast bread dough, you know that it does need to rise now. And that will depend on your recipe and what type of bread you used. You would follow the recipe. Add a little more if it's not sticking. Now we can use a couple sliced almonds for a beak. It gives the bird a beak at the end of his head. And a chocolate chip for an eye. You could probably also use a raisin. I like to bake this on parchment paper, then you can just slip it off when it's finished. The next thing we need to do is let this rise, and that'll take from 1 to 3 hours depending on your recipe. Then it will go into the oven and bake for about 20 minutes only. It can be prepared ahead and reheated later in the oven. Now the next thing I want to show you are some natural dyes for Easter eggs. We did some of this last year, and I used a few different ones this year. And I have some eggs in there that I'll take out, and then we'll put some more in. And I've done a few. These give very subtle colors, just pastel shadings for the most part. This was red cabbage, and red cabbage gives a blue colored egg and some of them were kind of mottled. This one was spinach, I believe, and this one was spinach, and the other one was, I think this was the red cabbage. And I did some blueberry as well. And I have another one in the beet juice. And I just, you basically cook the, whatever it is that you're cooking. Beets, blueberries, red cabbage, spinach, and this one is turmeric, which is an herb. And that makes a nice yellow egg. And then you put the egg in, and I'm going to put another egg in each one of these. And I put them in the refrigerator, and I leave them in there from several hours to overnight. It's a nice way, if you're going to eat the eggs, you keep them refrigerated this way, and the colors are safe. You don't have to worry about artificial colors. I have one child that's allergic to artificial color, and so natural color is the way to go if I want eggs that he can eat. And this, again, spinach, turmeric, and cumin, which are two herbs, and those I just dissolved in boiling water. The spinach I boiled, and I probably should have boiled it a little longer to get a darker color. This one is beets, and I used a can of beets and used the juice off of that. And then once you've already cooked it, I cooked up the blueberries as well. I strained out the vegetable or fruit, and then you add about 3 tablespoons of vinegar per cup. And you need the vinegar just like you do if you buy Easter egg dyes. And these are completely natural and dyes. So these are kind of nice as an alternative. And you can get some mottled colors, especially if you don't strain it that well. And depending on how long you leave the egg in the dye determines the intensity of the color. The next thing I want to do, and the last thing, is to make a centerpiece for the Easter table. And I'm going to move this over. Again, you can't put the eggs back into the carton until they're completely dry, or they'll stick to the carton. Good when you're boiling eggs, for hard-boiled eggs too. Don't put them back in the carton unless they're completely dry. I have a 2-part vase here. Actually, it's a trifle bowl, and I've got a bowl of water in that. And around the edges, I'm going to put some decorations. Brighten it up a little for Easter and the kids. And I'm going to pour in some jelly beans on the base, and I've got a couple bags. That forms the base. And then I'm going to use some of the Easter rabbit peeps and put them around the edge. And we'll need to open another box. A few more. You can use the chickens or the rabbits. I thought the rabbits would look kind of cute. And then in our bowl, in the center, some fresh daffodils. These are very available these days in the market. When you get them home, cut off their stems and put them in water. Daffodils exude a sap from the base, and if you want to arrange them with tulips and hyacinths or other flowers, be sure to let them stay by themselves in water for at least 24 hours. That gets rid of the sap, and then you can arrange them. The sap is poisonous to other flowers, and it will make them wilt and die. So you want to add those. and arrange them. And you could use some pussy willows in there if you happen to have some. They're also available now, and they're also available outside if you have a pussy willow bush. It's time to go out and pick them. And that's our Easter centerpiece. Now let's take these things into the dining room. So here we have our Easter brunch. We have our hard-boiled eggs, and they're available to be consumed. Our ham and asparagus quiche, and our almond coffee cake, which is in the shape of an Easter dove. I've also put together just a bowl of fruit, and I used pineapple, mandarin oranges, and the apricots that I canned last year. Makes a sunny arrangement, and if you're having a brunch, it's nice to have some fruit. Along with the centerpiece we made, and we're set for an Easter brunch. I'm Liz Davey, and this has been A Walk in the Garden on NCTV, Norfolk Community Cable Television. Join us next time when we go out to the garden and work in the kitchen.